Hey everyone, welcome to Mr. Geopolitics. Today we're going to be talking about the latest developments in Ukraine for September the 17th. So we're going to start off in the northeast, and the Ukrainians are claiming that at the town of Svatove, they have destroyed a Russian base. Also, recently there were some reports that the Ukrainians had crossed western Kupiansk. They'd crossed the Oskil River and made some inroads east on the side the Russians control. They'd crossed the bridge, but it seems like it was some kind of probing attack or a commando raid because the Russians are still in full control. Now, if we go further to the south, the Ukrainians have crossed the bridges over the Seversky Donets River. They've crossed the bridge here, and they've taken this town. And this was like over a week ago, but they're basically trying to head east and then south, while a second group here has crossed the river, and they're basically trying to go north, and they're both basically trying to take Liman. So these guys are trying to go down here, and the group here is trying to cross the river, and their main goal is to take the town or village of Liman and also Yampil. So far, the Russians have held firm and they've sent reinforcements, but the Ukrainians in the south have made some inroads, although the area in between is probably just what you would call a gray zone. So the area in between, there's some forests and whatnot, and it's pretty much a gray zone. The biggest issue for the Ukrainians is that in order to take Liman, they have to cross bridges over the Seversky Donets River, and the Russians could destroy those bridges at any time. They haven't yet, but that doesn't mean that they won't. So it might just be a trap. The Russians might just be, the Ukrainians might even take Liman, and then they might send some reinforcements, and then the Russians might blow the bridges, and then the Ukrainians will be stranded with limited supplies, and the Russians might just launch a huge counterattack. We don't know, but we're gonna keep track of it. Further to the east, everything is more or less the same. There were some clashes over Bilohorivka a few days ago, but the Russians have retained control over it. Let's see. Basically, the only place where the Russians are now making gains, it's basically near Bakhmut. The Wagner group, they've claimed today that they made some gains, but here the fighting is street by street, house by house. So they're making inroads slowly but surely, but it's nothing like what the Ukrainians did in the Kharkiv region, right? It's nothing like 70 kilometers a day or anything. But anyways, the Wagner group are still gaining ground slowly. The fighting here is very incremental. Just to take Kodema, it took over a month of fighting, heavy fighting. And now basically the Russians have fire control over this road right here. Some people are saying that the Russians even control the road, which is a main artery from Bakhmut to this area down here, where you see New York and all these other settlements. Alright, so if we go further south, the Ukrainians have recently bombarded Donetsk city. Not the front line, the city itself. And I posted a video on my channel recently. the Ukrainians have been stepping up their bombardment of Donetsk again, and the only way that the Russians can stop this is by taking areas on the front line. But if you look at this this dark red line, the dark red line represents what the Russians controlled at the start of the war, February 22nd, and you can see how they controlled Crimea and a little section of the Donbass. But this area right here by Donetsk city is one of the most entrenched areas in all of Ukraine. The area is heavily entrenched. The Ukrainians are heavily entrenched, so it's very difficult to make gains here for either side. Anyways, the areas the Ukrainians have been bombing, it's mostly civilians have been the ones bearing the brunt. So civilians have been getting killed, maimed, and it's quite a tragedy. Down south right here, Zaporizhia region. Nothing yet, but the Ukrainians seem to be removing mines, and they might be getting ready to launch a huge counteroffensive here. That's what we're hearing, but we haven't seen anything yet. All their attempts so far have been repelled. And in Kherson, in the city itself, there was recently a firefight. I'm not sure what the point was, but maybe it wasn't the Ukrainian saboteurs who initiated it. It might have just been the Russians who tried to arrest them, and that might have led to the firefight. But anyways, there was a firefight, and some armored vehicles, some BTRs got called in, and they were the Ukrainians were not sure what happened yet, but either they escaped, or they were more likely they were killed and captured. So aside from that, I mean, if we zoom out, you can see again the disparity in firepower. It's mostly the Russians doing the bombing. I read a report the other day saying that the Russians they outnumber the Ukrainians 15-1 in terms of artillery, and that might not change even till the end of the war. We don't know. Anyways, the biggest issue for the Russians right now is manpower. They lack manpower, and for the Ukrainians, it's the high number of casualties that they seem to be sustaining. So the numbers are all over the place, but some analysts believe the Ukrainians have sustained 50,000 casualties. Some are saying 100,000, and it could very well be over 100,000, considering the disparity in firepower. But anyways, the Russians, there is some talk about the Russians mobilizing, because the Russians have 2 million reserves. And if they were to mobilize, assuming that they would equip all those reserves with decent weapons, or even a fraction of them, like 250,000, and this war would be over. Because at this point, it's more or less a stalemate. The lines are mostly stable. The Ukrainians took a lot of territory in Kharkiv recently. In just 3 days, all the fighting was over, and then in the next 2 days, the Russians had already moved out of the towns and the villages in the north, and then they moved in. And took over slowly, the Ukrainians. But basically, at this point, with the Oskil River, the Seversky Donets, the saturation of Russian troops here, the reinforcements the Russians have sent everywhere else, the stalled counteroffensive in the Kherson region, I mean, it's more or less a stalemate, and the lines are more or less stable. So the Russians, I mean, if they even do a partial mobilization, 250,000 would be more than enough to end this war. How would they use that 250,000 or 500,000? I mean, they have a lot of options. They could just take Kharkiv, or they could retake this area, and then they could retake Kharkiv, and then from Izium attack Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, while the forces that are on the east side can attack as well. Because right now, by losing Kharkiv, the Russians have lost the opportunity to attack Sloviansk and Kramatorsk from the north. So, I mean, the Russians, I'm not sure if they're going to mobilize, but some Russian hawks are saying now that basically Putin is too soft and that Russia needs to mobilize and stop playing games. And recently, with Ukraine killing a bunch of government workers in these regions and bombing civilians, I mean, I don't think they should be doing that, because that just plays into that just gives Putin more excuses to actually go ahead and mobilize. And recently, the Ukrainians have been bombing the border regions very heavily, and the Belgorod region specifically. And there's even talk that the Ukrainians might launch an offensive into Russia. I mean, all of these things they're doing are just going to play into Russia or Putin's hands, because people in Russia are getting more and more angry. Footage is being shown on Russian television, and there's a lot of bent up anger in Russia. People are saying, why are we letting Ukraine embarrass us, humiliate us? Why don't we mobilize and put an end to this, right? So right now it's September. I mean, assuming the Russians would mobilize, train their troops for 4 to 6 months, because reserves already have some training, and they train, I think, once a month, or they're supposed to. So if the Russians are going to do it, they would have to do it right about now or sometime in the next month or so. But anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe, share and comment, and I will see you in the next one.